Hey everyone, welcome to Be Our Guest, our weekly virtual happy hour with industry professionals. I'm Dev Janki, Artistic Director of Live and in Color. We are a not-for-profit theater company based in New York and Connecticut, developing new plays and musicals that promote and celebrate diversity. For more information, check out our website at theaterincolor.org. And liveandincolor.org. Live and in Color just finished our annual artistic retreat in Connecticut, where we developed a new play called La Egosita, which we will, there's a picture, which we'll be hearing more about later, as well as a new musical entitled With Bells On, written by myself and Tommy Newman, starring Juan Danner and Cameron Williams. We had so much fun being back in person and very much enjoyed sharing the new works with our amazing audiences in Connecticut. Check out our website to learn more. Also, a huge thank you to everyone who donated to our Put Artists Back to Work fundraising campaign. With your help, we were able to reach our match of $15,000. All donations raised go directly to funding new development and opportunities for our incredible artists. Now, grab a cocktail and start leaving questions for our guests in the comments. I cannot imagine a better way to bring in Hispanic Heritage Month than to speak to our two guests tonight. Please welcome two incredible artists who are part of the Live and in Color family. First, director, consultant, and Live and in Color artistic associate Abigail Grubb, and writer, performer, and co-artistic director of Power Street Theater, Erlina Ortiz. Hello, cheers. Welcome. How are you both?
We're great.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
So good to see you. Where are you both tuning in from? Abigail, where are you?
I am in the Bronx, in the land of the Lenape people.
Yes. And Erlina?
I am in South Jersey, also the land of the Lenape.
Welcome. I'm so happy to see both of you. It has been so long since we saw each other.
Right.
Just last week, we were all up in Salem, Connecticut at Live and in Color's annual artistic retreat, where we developed a brand new play at the Bingham Camp. Can you tell us about what we worked on up there?
Oh my gosh, where do I start? Who should start?
Erlina, why don't you go?
Well, we worked on La Egoista, two-person play, though there were some other characters still involved. And it was about two sisters navigating boundaries and self-care and how to love someone even when they're very different from you. So yeah, that's kind of, I guess, without giving any specific details, overview of the play.
Well, yeah, and what was exciting about the play, this was Live and in Color's first commission piece as part of our newest developmental opportunity, the Juneingham Commission. Abigail, can you talk a little bit about this new line of programming and why Erlina was the best artist for our inaugural year?
Yeah, absolutely. It was a really exciting opportunity. I think a lot of what's happening in the field in general right now is thinking about how we can support artists holistically and intentionally with cultural competency centered at the center of everything, and really centering the artist development throughout the process, because the process of developing new work is so lengthy and expensive. And a lot of times these institutions will have lines of programming to please funders in order to get on the path of development, but it's sort of, it's not a one size fits all thing, developing a play or a musical. There are specific elements of storytelling. There are specific things that certain writers like. There are specific processes. So this commission was really set out to be something that can be moldable, that can be changed and worked in and worked with whatever team comes to mind. And we just thought, Erlina had such an amazing piece with us back in, it was November, right? Days of Recreation was in November.
Yeah.
So it's just like running together so much. But after seeing her piece in that, I was really inspired by that. And so when we were talking about doing the commission and really pulling the trigger on this program, she came to the top of the list. And we're so excited that she accepted and was able to join us for the first year and be our guinea pig.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, for those who don't know, back during 2020, we commissioned a virtual play, a series of 7 plays, and Erlina wrote a 10-minute play that introduced these characters to the world for the first time. And so when we came to you to ask about what you would like to write for us, I think you want to further develop them.
I was like, well, I already have these characters and this whole, that they actually came from a grander idea that I already had. So it was kind of perfect. And I also taken like a writing the dramedy course with Quinn Eli, who is a mentor of mine. And it was a really, I used every prompt to work on those characters. So I already had like these little, paragraphs and like short scenes and just like things like that. So I was like, oh my God, this is the perfect opportunity to make a priority to write this play that has been rolling around in my mind for so long. So it felt really, it was my partner was, I didn't realize how much I was just like in writing mode for like 4 weeks basically. And my partner was like, wow, you were just like trapped in your room. I was, wasn't I? But it was also like, it just went by so excitedly because I just was so like, ready to get these characters out.
Well, I think the characters and La Egoista explores themes of pursuing your dreams and familial obligations. What inspired the piece, Erlina? Does it come from your personal life, or where did these characters come from?
Oh my gosh, it comes from so many different things, and I don't even know how it all becomes the formula that it does. I guess when I start to break down, like I'm like, how did this all start? And so first, I guess the first thing is I've always been obsessed with comedians and comedy. And like, since I was a kid, I watched a lot of stand up and just like, never was like, that's something I'm going to do really. But it's just like, I enjoyed it. I think I grew up in a pretty like a household where like we made humor out of things often. So like, I just enjoyed humor, even before I fully understood a lot of the jokes. Like I liked this whole like, oh, you stand and tell people jokes thing. That's fun. So I had been feeling for a little while, like, man, I want to write a play where like it's a stand-up. And I think that it's probably going to be about comedy and tragedy and the way that these two things rub up against each other. And like what about a story about if it's a stand-up, but at the same time that she's like coming into her career, some tragedy is taking place at home. And that was sort of like what started it. And then I myself went through not a full tragedy, but it was a situation where my health was really rough and I had a bunch of surgeries and I kind of had to stop my life out of nowhere and just like be forced to like confront this new normal and to take care of my health again. So when the pandemic hit this last year, I was definitely having like flashbacks to that time in my life because everyone was like suddenly like forced out of their lives and like having to confront this like strange new normal. So I think that's something about that, like this play, the idea of just like being ripped from your life in a way that you're not expecting. And then also this other thing that like, as Latinas, and I've seen my mom do it and so many of the matriarchs in my family, where when someone is hurt or needing, they give and give and give and give and give until they don't have anything else to give and they end up making themselves sick or something, So I think I'm always interested in ideas of like wellness and boundaries and self-care. And I think that those different aspects of like health and comedy, tragedy came into a conglomeration to make this play.
Well, and it came together so beautifully. Can you talk a little bit about what, about, first of all, our 2 amazing cast members who joined us and how the whole collaboration between Abigail, yourself, and the other 2 members played out?
It was wonderful. I really appreciated the detailed feedback that I got from Abigail and from Angelica, who was reading for Betseda. And they both, like we did after I wrote like the first draft that just like came out of me. We had a meeting where we read that draft and they both just took such care in the responses to the questions that I had that it really and I saw the parallels and like the questions that they both had, that it just solidified for me like what the next draft needed and what I needed to work on. So just having even that simple of like write, read, get feedback from folks who are really thinking, you know, and like really thinking deeply about what it all means. Like there were so many moments where I was like, oh yes, like a note from Abigail. I was like, that's exactly what I'm going for. Okay, then all right, that's coming through. How do I continue to build upon that? So that was great. And then somehow it's just crazy how things happen that well, Abigail, you were the first one that like saw the video from SB who played Josefina, and it was like, this is a Latina comic that just submitted, and she submitted a stand-up comedy that she did. And it was like, oh my goodness, like she was, you know, immediately was like, we were like, oh my gosh, she had this Josefina energy about her that I was like, oh, I really like, I think I could learn a lot about Josefina by having someone like this play the role. So that was really exciting to find someone who actually comes from the comedy world to play a comedian. And yeah, I don't know. I just felt really lucky to have the team that came together that did. I felt like I was able to learn about the characters, even not in rehearsal, but like at dinner time and, you know, at the fire later, and just like all the moments where we would stop talking about it and suddenly folks would talk about it again. And then those little nuggets would come out and I'd be like, okay, yes, I see. Sometimes you get lost. You don't realize what it is that you're actually doing. And then when someone like points it out and you're like, oh yeah, that is what I'm doing. All right, let me keep focusing on that.
That's so great. I mean, I think that's part of the magic of, you know, the retreat up at the camp, is that it's not just in the rehearsal time. It's what happens over dinner, what happens over breakfast, what happens on a walk in the woods, you know. So, and Abigail, you spoke about this a little bit up there, but how special and unique it was to have 4 Latina women working on it. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, I've been going up to the camp, this is my third year. And it was just so special to have an entire cast that was just Latina women and, you know, from the diaspora. And it was just so special. I myself have never been in a rehearsal room that was entirely Latina. So it was truly something really, really special, and getting to come together and work on this piece with Erlina and the whole cast, it was really special. And I wish we had months together. But the 3 days just really, really a special place in my heart.
Well, and, you know, hopefully there are, you know, I see a big future for this play. You know, we really try to pride ourselves on being a springboard for new work and work that, you know, needs to be seen by the world. So I can't wait for the next steps for La Egosita. So, you know, everyone stay tuned with our social media, because you'll be hearing about whatever happens with it in the next step. You know, Abigail, in addition to your work as a director, you also work for a consulting company, CJAM.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell us about the work with them and how they are a resource for artists?
Yeah, absolutely. So CJAM stands for Candace Jackson Arts Management. We're a small firm based in Harlem, and so we have clients that are across the United States. We work entirely virtually, so we have clients in Pittsburgh, the August Wilson House, the Heinz Endowments. We work with the Apollo Theater. We're managing a capital campaign for them, but we really work in regenerating, renewing systems, building systems, financial planning, strategic planning, program planning. It's really exciting work, because consultants seem to be like the sort of genesis. We come into organizations that are at pivotal points of crises, at pivotal points of growth and development. And we really, you know, we're able to come in as a third party, and because sometimes you can't see what's so close to your face, right? So there could be holes, as we call them, in organizations, or, you know, things that are missing, practices that might be harmful, like sometimes institutions become so large or things become so convoluted that you aren't able to see the issues, and it can feed and create other issues. So we're really the ones who come in and sort of assess, and we go, okay, we gather data, we gather interviews, research, et cetera, and then we're able to work with organizations to build sustainable operating models and sustainable plans and programs that benefit artists. So like, for example, one of the projects that we're working on currently, we've essentially taken an organization that had some really strong public backlash, and we were able to essentially strip away everything from that, gather feedback from staff members, from artists, from board members and other community members. And now we're really working on rebuilding that organization from the ground up. And it's so exciting to see just a complete 180. And the feedback that we've been getting from the community has just been really special. It's so exciting. We're sort of the catalyst for the future of the industry.
Well, that's amazing because, you know, as we all know, you know, the arts in general are going through an especially hard time, and organizations like yours that are working to really keep them alive and sustain them are so important, you know.
It's funders too, all the funders out there. Fund organizations that are led by people of color. Fund organizations that are led by people of color. Stop investing in PWIs.
Yep. That's always the, you know, the journey. Erlina, you are also the co-artistic director and resident playwright at Power Street Theater in Philadelphia. Amazing organization. Can you talk about the work you do with the company and how it started?
Oh my God, how much time do I have? No, I'll give like the overview basically. So yeah, Power Street's my launching pad. I mean, it's where Gabriela Sanchez, who's the founder, came up to me and was like, hey, starting a multicultural theater company. This was like almost 10 years ago now. I can't believe it. It's just like time flies. And I started writing. That was how I started writing plays, was because I got together with a group of friends and a group of folks. Philly. And we did our shows in North Philly, and that's a predominantly Latino neighborhood. So, and my show was very, like the first show that I ever wrote was based off of a casting call that was, have you ever felt like you were a minority? So, you know, that was the cast that came together, and we built a show called Minority Land, which, you know, minority is, at the time it was a more used word. Now we're like, you know, the play analyzes like that word in itself. But anyway, the group came together, we wrote a play, we did it in a Latino neighborhood, and it was the first time I saw Latinos. Like, Abigail, you said how powerful it was for you to be in a space of just Latinas and like never having that experience, and how that kind of shifts your perspective and makes you feel a different type of way than other spaces. And that experience for me really happened with that first show, when I saw like people talking in Spanish in the hallway, waiting to go to the bathroom during intermission, and like laughing at jokes from the bilingual, you know, the Spanglish in the play. And it just kind of like I had always done other things like writing, performing and directing. And like, you know, I had always kind of worn lots of different hats. But in that moment, I really realized like, oh, playwriting can really be powerful. Like you can bring groups of people together. You can have people think ideas and thoughts they maybe wouldn't have thought before if you hadn't written this. So that was kind of like a epiphany moment for us. And we kind of went from there doing more plays that I had written, and like shows that we would devise together based off of different themes. And then eventually we expanded. Now we have community events that we do, called Comunidades Conectadas, that are always around different themes that pertain to what the community wants to talk about. We had a vaccine info session. We had an immigration lawyer come and talk to the community. And before they were in person, and we'd always have food and party and, you know, playing games. And like, obviously that had to shift with the pandemic. So we've been doing things on virtual. And we also have classes. Actually, that was one of my dreams, was like, I love teaching, and I was teaching an adult class. Like I had started teaching with kids, you know, like all young artists often start as teaching artists and like after school programs and do stuff like that to like supplement. And I love teaching kids, but I realized I'm like, I really want to teach adults. I don't know, like it happened, like, and it was like one of those things where like, man, like teaching folks in the neighborhood, like from tias and abuelos to young people to white, Black, Latino, everything. And like everyone having that moment of like, oh, I can write and make something happen. And then like getting actors to read the students' work. And like, that really became something that we realized we wanted to keep doing. So actually, because of the pandemic and just because of like not wanting to do live theater right now, we've been focusing mostly on our community events and the classes and the musical that I was working on. So a couple of different things. So we're quote unquote downsized right now. We're just doing a little bit less, because we're not doing a main show, you know, we're not doing a production, and usually we'll do at least a production every year or so. So right now we're just supposed to focusing on classes and community events and like letting ourselves kind of take a rest, because even during the pandemic we were doing a lot. So we're like, let's not do more, you know, let's balance ourselves a little bit. I'm very much about trying to just find that balance always between like work and life and your passion and all the other things that you need your attention in life.
Well, it sounds like you're still doing a lot, and you know, for anyone out there, definitely check out their website and their social media, because they're
and
really...
one of the social media, we have a great Jose Alicea does our social media, and there's a lot of really cool. That's actually one of the places where we're thriving right now because of the pandemic, is just having a lot of really great social media content, interviews and spotlights with awesome artists. So that's always like, if you're like on the toilet and you need something to, you know, go to Power Street's Instagram and you'll find some prime content there.
So both of you are constantly involved in creating new work, whether it be writing new pieces, directing, creating developmental opportunities for new artists, especially for artists of underrepresented communities. You know, how do you think we, the collective we, can continue to support growth to BiPOC artists in our industry? From your perspective, what are some things we can do? Abigail, why don't you go first?
Yeah. I mean, I think it all comes down to funding, honestly. It really does. I was
literally going to say, give us money.
If you're out there and you're somebody who has resources, even if you don't have a lot of resources, monthly gifts to small nonprofits are really transformative in their ability to be sustainable, to pay staff equitably, to pay artists equitably. Words. But it really is, it comes from the grassroots, and that change is going to come from the grassroots. Foundations are going to take years to catch up with where we are socially in terms of the industry at the moment, at least the forefront of the industry of the BiPOC professionals that I'm in close contact. I'm sure the both of you are also in close contact with, but it really does come down to funding. So invest in BiPOC-led institutions.
And trust them.
And, you know, I mean, there is something to be say for a good paycheck from a PWI, but it really is about giving your focus, attention, and funding to small companies.
So true. Erlina, anything to add?
I literally was going to say, just Abigail and I were actually talking about this, like, I think on the ride up, like, that's how quickly, I think she had just picked me up from the train, and like, we were like maybe 20 minutes into knowing each other in person, and we were already talking about like funding and the arts. So yeah, I just think it's just about trusting folks and you know, and I think one of the big problems too is that, like, if an organization, this is from our experience, like, you know, okay, if the most budget that we had was $100,000, then we can't even apply for a grant that is higher than that, because it's like they don't trust you to be able to manage that money or something. And it's like, hey, we got this far. Like, can you have a little bit of trust in folks? Like, if you can give that money to a predominantly white institution and trust them to be able to handle it, why do we have to go through all these hoops always, all the time, to prove that we're worthy when we've been doing the work often for free for many years now?
Yeah, it's so true. Yeah, everyone out there, write your checks. You know, our mission at Live and in Color is to connect diverse communities to create new stage works. I always ask this question every week, but what does having a diverse working environment mean to you? Abigail, do you want to jump in?
Sure. I mean, having a diverse working environment means that you have a collective, like, sample of the population, more or less, working with you. You have people who are differently abled. You have trans folk. You have non-binary and gender non-conforming folks. You have the BiPOC diaspora of folks. You should be able to walk into any space and feel comfortable, feel welcome, and be included.
Yeah. I mean, what it means, actually, because I am thankful to that most of my experiences have been in predominantly Latino, and then usually sprinkled in lots of other folks of many different backgrounds that we've worked with over the years. And it's just something to be said about being in a space like that just, you're always going to learn something new about the world and the way it works in someone else's experience. You're never going to get comfortable in your own experience, which is good. And I don't know, it brings me joy. Like when I'm in a room and I look around and I can be like, everyone in here comes from so many different places and gender identities and backgrounds, and we could all just like share a meal together and talk and laugh. Like it makes me feel like this is the world I want to see. And I want to continue to see more and more and more spaces like this, and for it to be the norm, for that every time I'm in a space like that, I don't go, wow, know, that it's just like, this is just the way it is. So yeah, and it produces more innovation, and it forces you to create protocols that help everyone to be included, which, and sometimes like that's one of the things we really do a lot at Power Street, is that we're just constantly trying to figure out more and more ways that we can challenge ourselves to, okay, we just included this new, this new person that we never worked with, a person of their background. So like, how do we make sure that we're not making it their job to tell us how they want to be treated? That we're immediately creating space from the front to say, like, this is now, we don't know where you come from. So tell us, like, how do you want to be in the world? And when you're in this space, how do you want to be treated? Do you want to arrive 5 minutes late and have everyone freak out? Or do we want to just accept that sometimes you're late and things happen, it's like sort of stuff like that, like of just like setting different protocols with folks. You're forced to do that when you're working in diverse spaces, because you can't take anything for granted. You can't take any cultural norm for granted.
Yeah, so beautifully said. I think we have some questions from our viewers. Lizzie Whitehouse says, what is it like seeing part of your personal life on stage?
It's definitely surreal. There's definitely moments, like I actually went through my old medical records to write some of the medical stuff that happens in the piece. And I think I was ready to write this piece. Like when I experienced my illness and surgeries and all that, it was 2014/2015. So I don't know, maybe there's something about that like 5-year mark. That's like when you were done maybe processing or like ready to like go back into like a, traumatic experience and be like, what was that? So there were definitely moments when like the health stuff was happening that I was just like, man, like, I went through some crap.
Yeah.
But also all of my plays that I've ever written have always just had aspects of myself or my family members in them. My mom especially, she's pretty much always in some character in some way. And whenever she comes to my show, she's like, hey, that was me, wasn't it? So yeah, I don't know. It's great. It's scary, great, challenging. You learn a lot about yourself. It forces you to be, honest with yourself in a lot of ways. But also I think that there's maybe about 30% of myself in my characters. And the other 70% is like people I know, and also just like, I don't know, the ether. That just like, there's sometimes a character just is the way they are. And I don't know why they're like that. And like later on, I figured them out. But Seda was one of those. I really felt like she was someone that I like got to know, like Esperanza, Josefina from the start was like, I know you, I know who this person is. But Seda, I had to crack her open a little bit more.
Wow. Let's take another question. Bob Grzeski says, what is the hardest part of developing new work? I don't know, either of you can answer this.
Like Abigail.
Yeah, I mean, the hardest part of developing new work is really killing your babies, as I like to say. It's when you get, I'm at least in a lot of processes I work on, I like to tease things out from the playwright, so you really get to know the full breadth of the story that you're telling. But then oftentimes you end up with a piece that's like 2.5 or 3 hours. And then the hardest part is deciding what are the important things to keep. What are the key elements, the key moments that we need to get to the next story, to put it all together. But cutting things is so hard.
Yeah. I think also like knowing killing your babies is definitely on this one there were so many moments but the thing, the consolation, I guess is the word for me was that I cut them all and put them into like things cut from La Egosita. And then I just like, maybe I'll use it something someday. Like, it's just like an extra document where all the stuff that I cut is. And I still wanted to cut like 5 pages and I just like couldn't figure out how to make it happen. So, but also knowing when, no, I know this is the right thing. Because if you start to hear too many voices being like, what about this? How about this? Oh, how about this? Then you like could start to question yourself too much. So like knowing like, no, wait, that I think even though they don't quite get it, it's not that I have to change it. It's maybe that I just have to make it clearer in this way or blah, 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 whatever it might be.
Yeah. Let's take one more. Shalina says, how did you like working together?
It was, I'll
horrible.
Oh, I have a delay, so
I just said horrible.
No worries, don't hire me.
No, it was great. Go ahead, Abigail. What were you saying?
I was just saying it was so wonderful to work with you. I had a really great time getting to know you better and really getting to dive into a piece that I love so much from the first draft. And thank you for trusting me with it. Yeah, it was wonderful. I mean, I could tell that you loved it, and that was like, that came through so strong in like every aspect of your interacting with it. I was like, this person gets this play and like loves this play for all that it is and all that it can be.
Let's take one last question. Lauren says, who are some of your dream collaborators?
Oh my gosh. Dream collaborators. That's such a good one, but I don't know. I feel like my dream collaborator is just anyone who like gives their all to a project, but like in a balanced, and healthy way. And who like brings their full self and is I don't know, just like a team player and passionate. I feel like that's my dream collaborator. I don't know if I have like a specific person. I'm still meeting so many people, like there's so many times that I'm just like, that's my dream collaborator, the person that I just worked with. But like, you never know who's around the corner too, that you're going to continue to make connections with. That's my answer.
I also think that there's something to be said for having several collaborators. Like, I know some people find their like creative match and like that's that, but like there's something like you learn so much by working with different artists and different actors and different writers and different directors. Like there is just so much to be learned from the community and from other artists. I feel like every time I work with a new playwright, it's like, oh wow, I never thought about storytelling that way, or I never thought about using this dramatic element in this way, but it totally works.
I think for me, that's one of the most exciting things about doing all this new work, and especially the work we do at Live and in Color, is the revolving door of artists that come in and out that, we get the privilege of getting to know and to work with and to collaborate with. So Erlina, thank you for joining us in our journey. We are out of time. But before we go, I want to say how proud I am of Live and in Color and the work we continue to do to foster inclusive environments and create platforms that showcase underrepresented voices. I really believe the stories we tell change hearts and minds. If you can, consider donating to Live and in Color at liveandincolor.org to support our work and our artists. Thank you to all our loyal Be Our Guest viewers and to anyone who may be tuning in for the first time tonight. We are so grateful to have this platform to speak to so many inspiring artists like Erlina and Abigail, and we love hearing them talk about their work and their opinions on the future of the industry. While Be Our Guest is not over, we will be having episodes less frequently as the summer comes to a close, but stay tuned to Live and in Color's social media for the next Be Our Guest. I can't wait to see you there. Also, keep your eyes on our social channels to be the first to know when tickets become available for our October workshop of Live and in Color's musical in development from last year, Within Elsewhere, written by Joshua Bentecourt and Trent Jeffords. We are so excited to finally work this show on its feet after the past year and a half. And thank you to everyone who tuned in today. And thank you, Abigail and Erlina, for joining me. I'm so proud of the work we created last week at our retreat. And I can't wait to see how the piece develops in the future. Erlina, would you lead us in a little toast as we say goodbye?
Oh my gosh. A toast. Okay. A toast to balance.
To balance. Thank you all for being here. Have a great evening. See you soon.
It's time to change the story. Come on and change this tune. See how the future looks